The Egyptian myth of creation is very similar to those of many other mythological pantheons in that it involves the world being created from primordial chaos. And now, this is still somewhat special, however, the Egyptian variant, in that this particular field of chaos is the mass of lifeless waters that is called Nu. And now supposedly from these waters, from Nu, rose a pyramid-shaped mound called Benben. Now this is very special because for the Egyptians, life was centered around the Nile and its fertile soil. So much of Egyptian mythology is structured around the life-giving waters of the Nile and how it sustained Egyptian society. Now, the particular god typically associated with the creation of the world is Ra, the sun god and the pharaoh of the gods. The Egyptians saw the sun as a central celestial being in simply life in general. Now, Ra had three forms that it varies which one is associated with this tale. Khepri is the rising sun, the dawn. Ra he has the same name in his middle form when the sun is at its peak, and Atum is the form that he takes when the sun is setting. Now, there are also separate gods that are occasionally associated with this story. Thebes associated Amun with the creation. The Thebans believed Amun was the pharaoh of the gods, and he was generally associated with wind. However, he was sometimes also associated with Ra. When Egyptian tribes formed alliances, they were sometimes known to fuse their major gods into singular beings, into combinations. So Amun and Ra are considered very similar at times. Then Memphis associated the creation with Ptah, the god of craftsmen. He is also sometimes associated with the creation of humanity. But typically, the most often Khepri or Ra is associated with the creation of the world. Now, Ra ended up creating two children. Shu, the god of wind, and Tefnut, the god of moisture. And he supposedly created them through asexual reproduction. This was supposedly to show that Ra is the creator of all. He's a bisexual or perhaps asexual being, you could say. And that gender-specific reproduction doesn't factor into his status as the divine creator of the world. Supposedly, Shu was created from a spit, and Tefnut was created from his either vomit or semen. Occasionally, it's been said that Ra created them by procreating with his own shadow. And so, Shu and Tefnut had their own children, Jeb and Nut, the earth and the sky. Now, Jeb and Nut were lovers. However, Ra disapproved of this union, as he felt that if they gave birth to a child, it might threaten this child may be strong enough to overthrow him and threaten his reign. So he ordered Shu to separate the two. And so Shu lifted Nut high above him, and supposedly this was how the sky became separate from the earth. Now, this actually factors into our modern perception of time, specifically the years. Supposedly Nut and Jeb longed to be with each other again, and Nut was so desperate that she went to the moon god Khonshu, who was also a god associated with gambling and chance. And she challenged him to a game where if she won, she would attain some of his moonlight. And she won so many times that she gained enough light to add more days onto the year to sort of circumvent Ra's rule that she cannot be with Jeb for any day of the year. Originally, the Egyptians had a calendar of 360 days to match the number of degrees in a circle. But with this unexpected plan of Nut's, now she had completely circumvented Ra's rule and could be with her husband for those 5 days. And the Egyptians believed that these 5 days were called the demon days because they were an unnatural addition to the year, and that they had to take certain precautions and occasionally wear charms so that they would not be cursed. And Jeb and Nut were together for these 5 days and had one child for each day. First they had Osiris, who became the god of the afterlife and underworld. Then they had Horus, who was a god of war and a god of the sky. Then Set, the god of the desert, and who later became also associated with anarchy. Then Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood, and Nephthys, who, while Set was generally seen as also a symbol of masculinity and virility, Nephthys is seen as the female counterpart to him, a goddess of femininity, and also a river goddess and funerary goddess. Although there were several deities that the Egyptians associated with rivers and the dead. Now, Horus specifically is actually a rather complicated story due to, perhaps some of you already know this, as he's a rather popular deity, but Osiris and Isis would later have a child also named Horus, and this is generally believed to be demonstrative of the Egyptians' belief in reincarnation, but that can be described more in a separate video, perhaps detailing Horus specifically, or the theme of reincarnation in general. We'll see. But yes, this is supposedly how the calendar gained 365 days in a year. And then, of course, there's still one more general aspect: us, humanity. So the general idea was one day, sometime early in the creation when the world was still being formed, Shu and Tefnut both became lost in the waters of Nu. So Ra, he extracted his eye and sent it to go search for his children, and this is now called the Eye of Udat. And when the eye did manage to find Shu and Tefnut and bring them back to him, Ra wept with joy, and humanity was supposedly formed from his tears. At least this is a general interpretation. Again, like I said earlier, some versions of this myth also say that we were formed on a pottery wheel by Ptah. But the Egyptian myth is very interesting, and also their specific pantheon is rather a revolutionary one in terms of human religion, and that's something that should be discussed in a later video, one that I look forward to. But if you have anything that you wish that you would like to hear about specifically, then again, just leave a comment detailing your request, and I'll be sure to get on that. Goodbye.